Good morning, dear Dharma friends. Those of you on Facebook and YouTube, I'm going to not have the sound on in order to avoid a copyright infraction. I'll be back. Yeah, how to do that? Do this. One, two, three, four. Okay. Good morning, dear Dharma friends. I'm going to begin this morning by playing a beautiful new piece of music that was created by my dear friends Kate Power and Steve Einhorn. Oh, I've lost my picture. Come back. There we are. Kate and Steve have been friends for a long time, and I've studied guitar with Steve for a long time. So here's a beautiful song to rollick along to, perhaps. Kate Power and Steve Einhorn, two lovely human beings. I will put the link to how to access that song in the chat after a little while. Now.
Recording in progress.
She's loud. Got it. So I need to do something here to disconnect this and this. There we go. Oop. Uh-oh. That's not right. Oh dear. I've ruined it all now. There we go. You can still hear me, I hope. Good. Mm-hmm. Hello, dear friends on Facebook and YouTube. I'm going to take these out. I just played a song by Kate, a little confused here, Kate Power and Steve Einhorn. And for those of you on YouTube, I didn't play it there because I would get a copyright infraction, I'm sure. And then they wouldn't put the whole thing on today. So here we are. I invite you to join me in what I'm doing now, which is looking from postage stamp to postage stamp. Huh? Hello, Danny. A few years ago, I had an exquisite and really difficult experience in that Jennifer, my wife Jennifer, and my daughter Tara created a surprise birthday party for me, and it was almost a surprise. Somebody blew it several months ahead, and then I was watching for when it would happen. But I was still blown away. I walked into the Dharma Hall, and there were, 150 people there, including people who'd flown from the East Coast and my sister. However, and they created this. Tara created this they created this amazing book, which has, there's a picture of little Bobby. And there's all these statements from people that I love. Here's one from Jim Dalton. I've only read it through twice because it's so incredibly moving. But the problem with an event like that is you get 30 seconds with each person. Now that's dukkha. Right? Hi. Wow, how are you? I got to go on to the next person now. And I have that experience a little bit with these portraits here. It's like, oh, there you are. How are you? How are you really? How are you really? So we're gathering together to practice the Dharma. To stop, to pay attention. I've had the incredible delight of a couple of hours to sit already this morning. Watching the human mind be the human mind. And life unfold in its strange ways. I have a rather long poem this morning. I shared it with the group during the week, and the feedback was pretty powerful. So I invite you to sit back and let it roll over you. It's by John Rodell. John Rodell. It's called My Brain and Heart Divorced. My brain and heart divorced a decade ago over who was to blame about how big the mess I have become. How big of a mess I have become. Eventually, they couldn't be in the same room with each other. Now my head and heart share custody of me. I stay with my brain during the week, and my heart gets me on weekends. They never speak to one another. Instead, they give me the same note to pass to each other each week. And their notes they send to one another always say the same thing. It's your fault. On Sundays, my heart complains about how my head has let me down in the past. And on Wednesday, my head lists all of the times my heart has screwed things up for me in the future. They blame each other. They blame each other for the state of my life. There's been a lot of yelling and crying. So lately, I've been spending a lot of time with my gut, who serves as my unofficial therapist. Most nights I sneak out of the window in my ribcage and slide down my spine and collapse on my gut's plush leather chair that's always open for me. And I just sit until the sun comes up. Last evening, my gut asked me if I was having a hard time being caught between my heart and my head. I nodded. I said I didn't know if I could live with either of them anymore. My heart is always sad about something that happened yesterday, while my head is always worried about something that may happen tomorrow, I lamented. My gut squeezed my hand. I just can't live with my mistakes of the past or my anxiety of the future, I said. My gut smiled and said, in that case, you should go stay for a while with your lungs. I was confused. The look on my face gave it away. If you're exhausted about your heart's obsession with the fixed past and your mind's focus on the uncertain future, your lungs are the perfect place for you. There is no yesterday in your lungs. There is no tomorrow there either. There's only now. There is only inhale. There is only exhale. There's only this moment. There's only breath. And in that breath, you can rest while your heart and head work their relationship out. It's like a new relationship. This morning, while my brain was busy reading tea leaves and while my heart was staring at old photographs, I packed a little bag and walked to the door of my lungs. Before I could even knock, she opened the door with a smile, and as a gust of air embraced me, she said, "What took you so long?" So, my friends, let us perform the ancient practice, the ancient ritual of stopping, pausing, It takes a lot of years, decades maybe, and disappointments. let's put it this way. It's taken me lots of decades and disappointments to realize that the only place that there's true happiness is inside. Everything outside keeps changing. And to the degree this mind demands things to be a particular way, there is suffering. So let's come home to here, to this breathing. Let's notice that the body sits here and touches the chair. And we could sort of notice it, or we could actually be in contact with the chair. And the same with the hands. The hands are alive. It's one thing to say they're alive, it's another to be in them as life. It's not very dramatic until one connects with the life, in which case it's not dramatic, it's just unspeakably alive, indescribably alive. There's life in the feet and the legs. In fact, there's life everywhere we look in the body. There's life in the left cheek, in the right eye. Sometimes when the mind is kind of calm, you can notice that you can feel the whole body at one time. It's just this unnameable, indescribable cloud of life. The mystery of awareness is happening. And we can create some sense of direction by forming the intention, I intend to be with the breath from the moment it begins. until the moment it ends. And then there's just knowing. And then the next breath emerges. Of course, the mind has lots of things it wants to think about. And there are emotions, opinions, memories, plans. The outer world what we think of as the outer world, may also impinge upon us. There could be sounds. There could be the movements about the house or wherever you are, of people, of pets. There are no distractions, however, in this practice. We don't need absolute silence. Instead, what we need is a willingness to be mindful. So let us notice when the mind wanders. And it may wander for 1/10 of a second or 5 minutes. But then something really remarkable happens. Waking up occurs. The trance state of thoughts becomes obvious. So let us come home to breathing, and with the greatest of love and compassion, observe the arising and passing away of everything that occurs. There are many, many strategies that have been developed to help us on our way. One of them is called noting, taken to a kind of pinnacle by the Mahasi Sayadaw in Rangoon. And in noting, one uses the cognitive capacity, cognitive perceptual capacity of the mind in order to point at the experience. So one might note sitting, and then aware of the hands touching, or the buttocks touching, or a sound, hearing. And in attending to mindfulness of breathing, the noting very quietly would be rising, falling. Rising, falling. Then one would probably discover that the mind wanders. The note would be wandering, returning. So as you can see, we're using a cognitive filter. It's something added. And we can become quite precise in noting. For instance, when the 5 hindrances appear, one could note wanting, or lusting, desiring, or disliking, wanting not, aversion. Or when the mind is restless and agitated, there could be restless, agitated, worrying, planning. Not with the intention of creating a lot of thinking. These are like pointers. And then sloth and torpor, sleepy dullness. Remembering in the midst of sleepy dullness, this is sleepy dullness. And a very challenging one of the hindrances is doubt, despair, dispiritedness. Once we recognize what it is, it's helpful to call it by its name, doubt. Competing belief systems. And then returning to breathing. Rising, falling. Or if you're attending to the breath at the nostrils, it could be in, out. And it's easy to see how this could then extrapolate into walking meditation, lifting, moving, placing. Or eating, reaching, bringing, chewing, swallowing. Stepping into the shower, stepping, and so on. So we honor the fact of breathing with as much loving, compassionate awareness as we can muster. Sometimes impatience comes along. Why am I doing this? Didn't I have other plans? And with impatience, when we know it for what it is and we go deeper, we often discover that there's something we really don't want to know about. We really don't want to know about ourselves, about this body. Or there's something unpleasant, maybe painful. I'd rather be doing something else than being aware of this. And sometimes the mind is just quiet. Or with the slightest encouragement will go quiet. With bringing loving awareness into this moment of this breath, a quality of intimacy develops. And it becomes obvious that the beginning of the breath and the middle of the breath are two separate phenomena. There are so many interesting discontinuities in consciousness. Sometimes the wandering is slight. Other times we can fall into deep unconsciousness very rapidly. Particularly true when we're tired. But it's all grist for the mill. None of it's wrong. Please let us open the aperture of our awareness to include the feet and the toes and the legs. There's nothing to do except invite awareness to open here now in the buttocks and all the life of the pelvis, the genitals, the whole lower end of the digestive tube. There's a lot of feelings, emotional feelings in the large intestine, in the gut. Aware and awake to the back, to the solar plexus and the deep inside the abdomen, to the expanse of the back stretching up from the base of the spine, clothing touching, aware of the sides and the chest, the fingers. So much life in the fingers, in the hands. Receiving the wrists and the forearms and the elbows and the upper arms. knowing the hands at the end of these useful structures, and the shoulders, and the neck and the throat. The jaw and the cheeks. The forehead and the scalp. And the eyes. Is there anywhere in this body where there is pain at this moment? Is there anywhere where there is pleasure? Are there any sensations which are neither painful nor pleasant, but just neutral, sort of, or they just are? And please be invited to do a little experiment, which is to notice how it is that you would allow your right ear to be pulled toward your right shoulder, without going forward or backwards, just straight to the side. And notice where the life is. And letting the body bend this way a little bit. And now slowly coming up. And doing the same on the other side. Noticing all the sensations that occur. And now coming back to center. A body sits here. Awareness co-arises with it. And let us now please bring awareness into that place in the universe which we think of as my eyes. And notice the intention that's required to allow the eyes to open. And we might practice a kind thought as we do that. Something like, may you be really happy. May you be free from suffering. And then at some point, the eyes will be open, and if they're working okay, if seeing is clear for you, there will become little Harry Potter paintings with living beings in them. And why not? Think a kind thought about somebody here. May whatever you're toiling with resolve itself. May you be free from pain. May you be liberated. May all beings be liberated for that matter. So, dear friends, I have a few things to share with you. First off is thanks for being here. Jim, would you confirm that we have a picture here for me?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Thanks. Oh, hang on, that's not it. And did it change?
Yes, now it's the whole ramp area.
Okay, I gotta turn this off. Hello? Oh, that might work. Huh. So this is a hole in the wall of the Dharma Hall that goes out onto this platform. And this was 3 days ago, so they're much further along than this at this point. So these fine guys are really interesting, fine work people. They're putting in this very nice, very high friction, see-through rampage. And we decided to get this because there are offices beneath it that need some light. So this is what it will look like, or this is what it does look like, or did look like from the living room, the ramp up to the Dharma Hall. And then this is what it looked like. This was 3 days ago. So it's much moved beyond this at this point. And then these are a little hard to see. This is the, we got the final, inspection on all the plumbing and all the electrical stuff. So the upstairs bathrooms are probably by now sheetrocked in. I'll see that on Monday. This is the upstairs bathroom. Sadly, on Friday night, they were nailing through here and they hit a water pipe. So there was a quick flood. So the water is turned off in the building till a plumber comes on Monday morning. And this is the upstairs bathrooms. So I think that's it. Yep, for that. It's coming along just fine. Then I have some announcements. My first is the virtual retreat that Jim Dalton and I are doing in early January, January 7th through 12th, is almost full. If you're wanting to do it, there are 4 places left as of this minute. So we have to limit it, and we're doing, so I'm going to check it a lot to not overflow too much. The second thing is that on Saturday, November the 20th, Jim Dalton will be doing a half-day Qigong retreat.
However, that's not true anymore.
Oh, okay.
Because we've taken another step in our DEI training. There's going to be a meeting on that same day with the board and the Dharma leaders participating with the DEI committee.
I remember.
And so I've got to get an announcement out right after this meeting to connections to cancel my workshop for this month.
Okay, thanks,
I'll be
Jim.
back. Yep.
On the first and third Sundays of the month, Candle Summers does an evening group from 6:30 to 8. And the information on that is on the website, and I highly encourage you to visit and be with Candle. And then on Saturday, December the 4th, we are beginning once again our once-a-month day-long retreats. And again, Candle is taking that this month and working with the 5 faculties or strengths. So powerful ways to deepen your practice. And then, of course, Jim teaches Monday night and Doug Pullen is on Thursday. And I get one more update on the center. It's possible that we will have the certificate of completion by the 15th of December. It's also possible that we will be delayed 2 weeks or maybe more by a fire door that has turned out to be more complicated than we thought. So I will let you know about that as soon as we know anything. For those of you familiar with the center, when you leave the Dharma hall, you go through a door, and then you're in the passageway, and then there's another door at the end of it. That door is at the dividing line between the two buildings, and in order to make a fire break there, that needs to be a fire door, and so and there's some complications. So, but more will be revealed. Yeah, we're going to need there will be lots of opportunities for karma yoga, for participating in getting the place back together in a new way. I have a sense we really are creating a new Dharma center here. Oh, and there's another announcement. Good, I remembered. Hold the date. Tuesday, November 30th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. We're 99% sure that's going to be the date. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee invites you to something we're calling Belonging at PIMC. And before then, we will send out our Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Statement, the PIMC statement, for you to peruse, and then gather together for a reading of that. And also Kat Salah, who she's doing a PhD in psychology, and she's helped us tremendously. Many or most of you probably got a questionnaire about your experiences of belonging and diversity and so on at PIMC. And so we have quite a lot of very interesting data, and she's massaged it into a presentation that she's done now for the teachers and the board. And so we'll have her, she's planning on doing that night. So there will be the DEI statement, Kat's presentation, and then we want to open up to you and see what feedback you have and what further input you'd like to have in this. So it's a pretty exciting time. That's the 30th of November. Yep. And I guess last but not least, 6 a.m. on Wednesday morning, I'm on a plane to Fort Lauderdale. Woo. Just had a rush of feelings. Where we will be gathering up Jennifer's mother, Rita, who is in an abysmal memory care place. I've heard, I've kind of heard stories of how bad places can be. Well, some of them are bad. If you have loved ones who are in such places, it's really important to go see them and see if their laundry has been done in the last 3 months. Jennifer made 27 pictures of Rita's life and framed them nicely in all kinds of varied frames and put them in a box and sent them off to Florida. And when she got there to visit a month and a half ago, they were still in the box. It's really quite wild and short-staffed and all that. But anyway, we're going on that adventure, and then we'll be back the following Tuesday with Rita in tow. And she will be going into a place here called Touchmark, which is I believe, a much, much better memory care facility. But we're off on quite a family adventure, and, who knows what will happen between Rita and Jennifer. It's not been an easy lifetime for them. So that's what I have to share. Jim, would you like to do a little movement?
Yes, sir. I will turn on a little light and spotlight myself. If you want to join me for some mindful movement, won't need a lot of space today. We'll stay. Wow. I'm wearing a white shirt, so I don't need to put a light on. Okay. So let's get in touch with our feet on the floor. Bring our awareness into the sensations in the toes, the heels, the outside edges of either foot. And then moving back and forth, this easy pouring maneuver, where we basically what we're doing is changing the center of gravity over here. That sets off a whole set of sensations. Bring it back. And if we're used to functioning all the time out of a command center that we think is behind the forehead, this brings us down, pulling the attention, the awareness down into the waist area of the body, the hips, and just shifting them over changes the configuration of all the sensations in the leg underneath that, pouring into that leg, pouring into this leg. Do that several times and notice how it's just continuous change. Just a flow of sensations. Some at the bottom of the feet, some at the knees, some sensations in the hips. And then coming to stillness, notice that there's still a flow of sensations, but it's not as obvious, it's not as tangible. There's no external obvious movement, but there's life in this body. Life in the feet when they're still, life in the hands when they're still, life in the gut. The poem talked about making friends with the gut. Sometimes we can go days without having a decent conversation. Okay, let's bring our hands together and cross in front of the heart, maybe 3 or 4 inches in front of your body. And then what are the predominant sensations? Holding this position of gathering. And then bring both hands into fists and bring them to the heart and just touch the framework of the ribs. Lift the thumbs and then lift the arms out so the thumbs are down. And then where are the predominant sensations in this standing body? But let's turn it into a movement. There's this feeling together away from the rib cage, this feeling, contact, this feeling, stretching the thumbs, and then opening, pausing, returning to the beginning, pausing. It feels like this. Bringing the hands to the heart and touching the rib cage, it feels like this. Stretching the thumb, on either hand feels like this. Stretching the arms, thumbs down, feels like this. Again, position 1, noting sensations. Position 2, three, pause, stretch, pause. Awareness of a standing form, releasing back to the center. Second step, contact. Stretch just the thumbs. Stretch out and pause. Come back to the center. We can use this launching pad for a different stretch. Lift one palm and press towards the heavens. Drop the other palm down, pressing towards the earth. Pause. Aware of sensation in the fingertips, in the shoulders. Each shoulder is unique. We can go back and forth. One shoulder feels like this, and the other shoulder. Then switch hands. Pausing in the middle to just feel both hands in front of the heart, and then switch. One palm up towards the heavens, one towards the earth, and pause. Aware of sensation. We can note the fingers, the palms, the shoulders. Coming back to the center, face the palms towards each other or in front of the heart, and pause. It feels like this. Stretching one hand up, one hand down, feels like this. And the breath keeps coming. Come back to the center, pause. Stretch the other side, up, and then the opposite down. Noting just a few instructions. Let's come back to the center. Turn the palms up in front of you and just receive the effects of this movement. So part of Qigong is, you could call it medicinal. You can lift the palms up, face forward, bring the elbows in and drop the chin. Open the arms with the hands facing forward. Bring the elbows in and drop the chin. Breathe in as you open. Breathe out. In. Out. And the coordinating with the breath creates a circulation of energy that's very healing. It's almost medicinal. And so stress that's built up from contracting muscles gets relief, relaxation. And then we relax the arms down and pause. And we can just allow the attention to move through the body, noting how does the chest feel? What's happening in the shoulders? In the palms of the hands? The bottoms of the feet? And then for you, this moment, where's the predominant sensation? Each of us is going to experience it differently. Each of us opens awareness and lands on the most significant or the most obvious sensation. And then what happens to that contact between awareness and that sensation? Does it stay the same? Does it fade away? Does it grow? Does it shrink? We don't know ahead of time. There's an openness and a pliancy to the awareness. What's happening here? And how does it happen now? And then sinking again and opening to the side. Raise the arms up overhead. Relax the wrists. Let the hands just float down like autumn leaves. They're almost gone on the tree outside my window. But for the last 2 weeks, they've been breaking loose and descending. They just surrender. So let's let our hands surrender to gravity. It feels like this. The stretch and release. Once more. So that was an intentional movement organized around the natural pliancy of the shoulders, etc., etc., etc. And now awareness comes to the standing body with no intention except to be aware, to know awareness. Knowing the body standing. And then my heart opens in gratitude for your attention and your willingness to play the game. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. Anybody that wants to meditate at 7. And we'll see you next week, Sunday, for those of you that won't return till then. But thank you very much, and we'll gather again soon, I hope.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Hello, dear Dharma friends. It's been percolating in my thinking this morning to speak about the precepts. And there's a context for it. Pardon me a second, I got a little throat stuff. There would appear to be, there is, I guess I could say, a breakdown in public trust. Not just here, but around the world. There's a resurgence of what's the word? There's a resurgence of bullies all around the planet. And there is everywhere a breakdown of skillful communication and a validating of lying, so that it's becoming very difficult for many people to know at all what's true or what they really believe in or what's believable, and it's all being exacerbated by social media and being siloed and all that story. So they're challenging times, aren't they? Just remembered a poem or a piece of a poem. Anyway, when I wake up in the night with fear of what my future or my children's future will be, I go to the woods. I go to where the wood drake rests in his beauty in the woods, in the river, in the lake. But I believe it's worthwhile, it's important for me to acknowledge the uncertainty. And the unthinkable, the thoughts of, oh no, what would happen if this happens or that happens? And we will probably get to live it through. It's the rise of fascism is what it is that I was trying to remember. And so what should we do? I mean, some of us will become involved politically, and that'll really make sense to them. And many humans will remain oblivious and just stay in thinking. But we're in we have a particular possibility to actually practice and to band together and to develop our capacity to deal with whatever comes. Here, I gotta change this view here for a moment. Hide that. There we go, that's better. So among the things we can do is, of course, to develop our meditation practice more and more, to become more awake and more loving and more generous. And then we can match that, we can pace that with really keeping the precepts in mind. And no matter what happens around us, to really persist in the precepts. And in the world at large, the precepts are in a shambles. When the value of I'm going to get what I want for me is in the ascendant, and there's not the fundamental always seeking the common good, seeing that, looking at our own behaviors is how do they affect all. And Gandhi said, when you're about to do something, reflect on how it will affect the poorest person on earth. So, with that in mind, let me ask you this, with a raise of hands, if you would, just like physical hands. Could you name the 5 precepts? Raise your hand if you can. Okay, so it's a worthy thing to talk about. So I think I want to do this. No, I don't. I've got a list of them, but let me just talk about them. I don't need those till you're speaking. I'm sick of wearing masks and things on my head and face. Yeah. So, we are fundamentally mammals. We have the brain of an alligator and the brain of the mammal and an overlay of the brain of the human. And we are programmed for survival. We are programmed to procreate and keep the species going. And there are very powerful energies involved in that. As humans, we have the possibility to go beyond mere mammalian life and actually become loving and kind. So, every spiritual tradition has created a set of moral and ethical guidelines. We have the 10 commandments in Judaism and Christianity. And the Buddha's 5 precepts are a particularly, I believe, elegant presentation in that they're not shoulds. We might present them to children as shoulds. You should learn this and this is how you should do it. But the precepts are actually much more functionally understood as consciousness-raising concepts. So I think I am going to show I've got a slide of them. Here, somewhere there it is. I'm going to go there. So I'm going to show you this and just read them through once. This is the Pali Transcription. It's Panati Pata Veramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami. And it translates as, I undertake the rule of training, or the training of the heart, to refrain from taking the life of any living being. 25 years ago or so, I wrote a second line for each one, which is, follows, I aspire to become kind and of service to all beings. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. I aspire to become generous to all beings. So this is the restraint and this is the activity. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from sexual acts which cause harm. I aspire to nurture love, relationship, and beauty. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from false and harmful speech. I aspire to use speech to create happiness, harmony, and understanding. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from the use of intoxicants. I aspire to cultivate mindfulness and wisdom. Okay, coming back from there. I grew up on the 10 Commandments as having been handed down by God. Remember, he gave the tablets to Moses, and Moses came down off the hill, and so they could be understood as, you better do this or else. And a better way, and not a different way to understand the precepts is how funny is, you better do this or else. But it's not because someone else is tracking it. It's because the very doing of it violates the fabric of life. And that what we discover over time, we can start with the precepts of reflecting on them and thinking about them and working at cleaning up our act. But over time, it becomes more and more obvious. These are the laws, not the laws that somebody passed, not the laws that somebody handed down, but these are like the laws of physics. That if, in fact, we live within the container of these thoughts and behaviors, we'll be happier. And if we live outside that container, we'll be unhappy. So it's something to check out. I have a couple of examples of that as we go here. So the first one, interestingly, I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from taking the life of any living being. A couple of decades ago, I did a retreat with Ajahn Sumedho, who went through the precepts. And he modified it a little bit and said, imagine how different the world would be if we simply didn't kill other human beings. If that option was off the table. Jennifer and I went to see the new James Bond movie last night, and oh my, there was plenty of killing. Killing is so normal in the movies. And it's pretty normal in the world, actually, sadly. So I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking the life of any living being. So for the most part, that's not so hard. Now, there's a question that always comes up around that. Well, what about killing animals and eating meat and so on? And there's all kinds of different positions on that. What I understand from the time of the Buddha was that he would eat meat if it was not killed specially for him. And that it's the act of the killing that's at issue. So there's a whole philosophical, environmental discussion that can happen around that. But for ourselves, what if we simply won't kill humans? And what if we simply then would act to stop anyone else from killing humans? It clarifies our position, doesn't it? And then I aspire to become kind and of service to all beings. Not only will I not kill, but the orientation to life that I want to embody has taking your needs into account, taking everyone's needs into account. Which then gives us some ways to think through actions that we're going to take and not take. The second precept. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. That's a very interesting set of words. And then I aspire to become generous to all beings. Another way to word that might be, I aspire to having generosity be present as often as possible in my life. The Buddha spoke of generosity, that if we knew the power of it, we would never let a single meal pass unshared. So taking that which is not freely given always has this to do with it. What can I use here? Here, I've got this little thing because I have dry eyes. Watch what happens inside you when I do this. This is mine. Or, you think it's yours? Nope, I'm taking it. It's mine. Versus, oh, look what I have. Do you need this? I'm quite willing to share. This could be ours. Here. And there's a very different feeling to those two attitudes. There's a sense of lack, often, when we take something which isn't really ours to take. There's a sense of, well, I need this and I can't get it in the appropriate way, so I'm going to take it. I know it's a big lesson in life. I've raised two kids, my son Luke and my daughter Tara, from the get-go. And each of them came to a moment when they stole something in the community. And there's a transmission in my family that my father stole a pocket knife during the Depression. And his father found out somehow. And so he went back to the store with my father and had him give it back. And then when they were done, they left it was like the 5 and dime or something like that. It was a cheap little knife. My grandfather was a telegraph lineman and an amazing craftsman. And he knew tools. And he said, okay, if you need a knife, let's go get you a real knife. And then he got it and he taught him how to use it and sharpen it and be safe with it and so on. In my instance, in that lineage, when I was quite young, I went out and collected pennies for the Red Cross. And they weren't for the Red Cross, they were for me. And I got home and I was found out and I had to go back to the neighbors and apologize. And something very similar happened with my son Luke. We were in a hardware store and there were some broken pieces of chain cut, the ends of chain cut off when they cut chain. And I didn't want him to have them because they were sharp. And so I said, leave that here. And he took it. And a guy got home and I found a pocket full of chain. And we went back to the store, West's, I forget the name, it was a wonderful old hardware. And I went in and I winked at the guys. And they were right on it. They knew exactly what to do. Then we had a conversation of, should we involve the police? And, this isn't okay. And he needs to learn not to take things. And then it was a wonderful encounter. And then something very similar happened with my daughter, Tara. And these were really important teaching moments. Of course, they were also watching us. And I've had this experience with 4 kids, stepkids as well, that when they turn 12 or 13 or whatever it is when you're supposed to pay adult tickets at the theater, every single one of them said, I can pretend to be younger, quite spontaneously. And what a teaching moment. It was like, no, I undertake the training of the heart to not take that which is not freely given. So, what am I hoping? I'm hoping this will help you have some observation and checking. Is there anywhere in your life where you're kind of skating by, not being honest? Okay. Oh, and then the generosity side. There is so much possibility for being generous in our lives, starting with ourselves. And there is the codependent problem of being willing to give to others but not give to ourselves, to not give ourselves the time to practice every day, to not take care of ourselves physically, medically and so on. Then the third precept. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from sexual acts which cause harm. Have you ever caused harm around sexuality? It's pretty common, almost ubiquitous. Why is it that we go so crazy around that? Well, it's because the prime directive, which has nothing to do with our personalities, has to do with keeping the genetic pool moving forward. And so this precept is there to help support us in not hurting ourselves and others by being our natural mammalian and reptilian selves. And looking back at my life, I can see how I harmed others and how I harmed myself by not being clear about the boundaries around sexuality. And I like the second statement with this one is that I aspire to use libido, to use this energy of creativity to bring love and relationship into the world. To actually, in the realm of overt sexuality, to actually have the interaction between people be an act of love rather than an act of greed, where we really are communicating with each other and we're bringing something beautiful into the world. And I've been on both sides of that one, that's for sure. I undertake the training of the heart to refrain from speech which causes harm. Lying, slander, gossip, the colorful idle chatter, which, of course, all of television is, 99%. Idle chatter. And not being quite honest or being overtly deceptible, the little white lie thing. And there's a reflective question, which is, was there a time in your life where you lied and where it turned into a monster? I've had that a couple of times. Oh, one of them was we were buying Tara a car when she came back to go to nursing school, and we kept it secret. And it was a pain. I had to lie about 10 times in order to keep the secret. I really didn't like it. It was such a strange undertaking. Jennifer's former partner, her husband, came to the door and asked Tara, well, how's your new car? So she then asked about that, and I said, well, no, there's no car, forget that. And then the woman we were buying it from, Jennifer's really good friend, came over while Tara was here. We were having dinner, and she showed up with the keys. So there was some very weird, it's difficult. So I undertake the training of the heart to use speech to create harmony and understanding. And this is where one can put in a plug for Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication, compassionate communication training. That the Buddha was really clear about if you're about to say something, is it true? Can you say it kindly? Is the purpose healing? And is it the right time? There's some criteria we can go through. But Marshall Rosenberg has that marvelous whole strategy of conscious communication. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, I undertake the training of the heart to become more and more conscious about how I use intoxication to avoid reality. using substances to alter consciousness is far and away the norm in the world. So the precept is, I won't do that. And we can take a pretty hard line with substances. That's quite a discrete thing. But there's another huge intoxication, which is these. I know when I went on my little retreat a couple of weeks ago, to not turn this thing on and look at the news was a real challenge. What a ridiculous thing. Or to not check email, because I didn't want to do that. So to always listen to the radio, to always work. So we can ask ourselves the question, where am I with this? Is it a mere glass or two of wine a day, quote? Or I know back when I was waking up to my marijuana extreme use, I had this whole rationale that, well, since I only took one puff, maybe two, and only a couple of times a day, it wasn't that bad, really. And I discovered when I stopped doing that I was very depressed, and I had been hiding from the depression through that marijuana. So I hope you can hear in this isn't a moralistic good or bad. You know, I'm a good person or a bad person. That gets us just stuck. But it's more, what is the price that I'm paying? If I am going around killing, what's the price? If I'm taking that which is not freely given, what's the price? There's anxiety for sure. If I'm acting in ways sexually that are harmful to myself or other, what's the price? If my speech is filled with, or is gossipy or blaming or attacking, or what's the price? And what's the price if I am blurring out my consciousness with some regularity? And then if we figure out the price, then we can decide, is it worth it? Is this what I want to do? And then the positive statement of the fifth precept is, I aspire to cultivate mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. I really want to be able to be present in reality and to become fully awake. A couple of more things I want to say. One is the precepts can really grow on us. I know I at my doctor's office, they have nice pens. They're really quite good pens, giveaway pens. And they're always there in a container on the top of the desk, and I lose them. And they are there to be given away, and I know their purpose, and they're for marketing, and it feels much better to me to ask the person at the desk, is it okay if I take one of these? I don't have any sense of purloining, that's a funny word, of sneakiness. It's just, and there's many other things like that. So I think I want to stop there and see if you have comments or questions or further refinements that you've discovered in the precepts.
Robert?
Pamela.
Yes, I wanted to, emphasize I undertake the training. It's a training, it's a process, and it is to be refined over time, many, many years. And I undertake the training of the heart. I undertake to abide by the precepts. These soft introductions into it take away the shoulds. And I go back to that all the time. It's a kindness to oneself and society.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Robert.
Hello, Jai.
Hi. I love the example you gave about the pins, particularly that because it shines the light of awareness on an unconscious act that I do, exactly with pins, but I'm sure it doesn't stop at pins. There's other places where there's that gray area. Is this clean or not clean? And because of your bringing it up today, it'll be much more in the forefront of my awareness. And I like that a lot because it's a
Great.
I have to say, it's kind of a sleazy feeling. And I think it's an area where sometimes I slide a little bit.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to. So thank you very much.
That's a good word. A sleazy feeling, huh? I love it.
Yeah. So
Oh,
thank you.
I just went to put the precepts up in the chat, and there they are. Thanks. You're quick on the draw there, Mr. Dalton.
It's not my first rodeo.
That's a weird saying.
Yeah, that didn't feel good.
I'm going to mute you, Jim. I'm not sure. And we certainly couldn't do it in a gathering like this, but it would be, I don't know how, it would be so fine to have a gathering in which we could be really honest with each other about, well, this is the way I don't follow that precept. And this is the way I don't follow that one. And I'm pretty good on this one usually, except for this. And to discover how we are all working with these things and how challenging human life is to really be impeccable. I had an experience a long time ago. I was in my counseling practice, and this fellow came along who told me he worked in security at one of the banks. Was an interesting fellow. He wouldn't give me his home address. He did give me his phone number, and I saw him maybe 25 times. And he was very high in the security of this big bank. And twice a year, he would go in unexpectedly. He would go in to go to work, and they would tell him, "You've got 3 weeks off," in order to see if he was running some scam. But anyway, he was very honest with me about something, but wouldn't tell me others. And he paid me in cash. And so I kept his visits and payment separate from my ordinary records because I didn't want to pay tax on them. Very easy to do. And then I don't know why or how, but I started getting paranoid. It's like, oh my God, he's a plant from the IRS. They're testing me, and so I had to go back and reintegrate all those payments into. Oh, I know what it was. He wrote me and asked for a receipt. That's what it was, and And I realized it really wasn't worth it. It just wasn't worth it to not be squeaky clean with that, because it didn't make that much difference. But the difference in my heart was a lot of anxiety. Please, Annie.
Hi, everyone. I feel very scary to share, but I think it feels right to push.
Yay!
Yeah. I haven't been here in almost 2 years, so I'm really emotional to be back. And if I can get this out, I just wanted to share how meaningful the last precept is to me right now in my experience of regarding my own mental health and experiences with consciousness, my own sense of consciousness that are so unbearable at times to stay with, and also that don't have a societal or relational mirror of how to approach kindfully, mindfully, with compassion. So the radical act of staying, touching, without the intoxication of distraction is, I'm finding, inching towards it on this point in my rehabilitation, a way to cultivate a sense of belonging to myself, even if it's only I who is in intimacy with the experience, the validity of that. And so I'm just moved by thinking of the vow to refrain from podcasts, noise, TV, food, all the things that prevent me from touching this experience that is so difficult for me. So just wanted to share that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Annie. That was very beautiful. I think that description, you used your hand, that you could touch this painful experience, but then, no, thank you, I'm going to listen to a podcast, or I think I'll eat something. I know that one really well. Thank you for sharing that.
Hi, Robert.
Mr. Danny.
Hi. I was just thinking about the first precept and you presented today about the taking of lives. And I just saw a beautiful movie last night, Belfast, about the troubles in Northern Ireland and the tribalism, where the people, Catholics and Protestants, were taking each other's lives. And it reminded me of the tribalism we're in right now, where lives are being taken because you're a member of a different tribe. The Antifa in Portland who killed somebody who was a Proud Boy, and then the Proud Boys killed somebody. It was just that going on back and forth. And then we have that going on right now. And it's just, but I do recommend this movie. It's very beautiful about how we need to transcend that. We need to transcend tribalism. And because it's so present in our lives and what we see now, that if somebody doesn't believe what you believe, you can take their lives. And it makes me very sad just to say that. But I think what we're working on is a remedy to that. If we can talk across tribe lines, which is so difficult. So that's what I'm feeling this morning. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Danny. I heard an interview with the fellow who produced that film and directed it, maybe. He's an amazing fellow.
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yes. It's based on his story of him leaving, as a young boy, leaving Belfast in Northern Ireland because they feared for his life. I'm It's a great score by Van Morrison. I'll just have to throw that in.
Oh. Huh. Thank you for the concern with for the feedback, Kimberly, about the echo. Is it gone now? It's still there. Oh well, I'll live with it for now, I guess. Too many wires.
Hi, Robert. It's Karen.
Hello, Karen.
Hi, Robert. Well, I'm going to confess that I killed a rabbit over the summer. It was kind of an accident, but I was throwing a rock at it. It had been eating my garden, and I threw a rock at it. I have a really good arm, and I actually killed the rabbit.
Whoa.
And I was so upset about, I know. I was so upset about it that I was calling a friend and I said, oh, I killed the rabbit. And she goes, well, you know what? Maybe the eagles will pick up the carcass and drop it on top of your house. Well, because eagles live in my backyard. Well, the next day, guess what? The eagles dropped the carcass on the pathway leading down to my house. So it's kind of, yeah. Anyway, it took me a long time to get over that. I felt really bad about killing the rabbit, but the rabbit did decimate my garden. So I kind of felt a sense of relief as well that the rabbit was gone.
I think you got to rein that intention in there, Karen. You're a couple of steps away from a Stephen King novel.
And what about those times when we have to kill? There's a little article at robertbeatty.com I wrote 10 or 15 years ago. It's called Killing Ratty. And in brief, it's we found rat poop in the basement and in the kitchen. So I determined we needed to, no, first off I said, oh, we'll just live with them. They were getting dog food. That's what we figured out. We'll just live with them. They're just like mice. And then one day, one ran across my daughter's foot in her bedroom in the basement. She shrieked and I went down. And then I decided, well, I'm going to get a live trap and we'll catch the rat and I'll release it to the woods. The rat had no interest in the live trap. And so I decided, well, eventually, and there was some prodding from elsewhere in the family, I bought a rat zapper, which is a device you put 3 or 4 batteries in, and the rat goes in, and then they get a shock from their nose to their paw, and they're done away with instantly. Nothing happened for a few days, but then I went down one morning and the little light was on, and there was a rat in the trap. And I felt bad. I took the rat out, I put it on some newspaper, I sat with it for half an hour, I investigated it. It was a very beautiful little animal. And then I had a very ritualized burial in the garden and wished it a happy rebirth. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll set it again. And in the end, there were 7 ratties. We had a serious infestation of them. And I noticed that by the 7th one, I was much less inclined to do a ceremony, or it was like, it's another rat. And I learned from that one of the purposes of the precepts is to set the barrier so that we know, that we morally and ethically know something gets set off in us when we're doing something that is not in keeping with this precept. Another time was at PIMC, we had a very severe outbreak of fleas. We had to call the pros 3 times. And I was really aware we're killing creatures, but if we're going to use the center, they have to go. And so being conscious of when we're killing and when we're not, I think is very important. And to realize that sometimes we will, if we're being a responsible parent or responsible person, sometimes when you take antibiotics, you're killing billions of bacteria. We don't live on this planet without killing, but can we do it really with integrity and clarity? And how great that you felt awkward about it, about killing the rabbit. It's really
good. I did a ceremony too, actually. A friend came over and she actually saw it on the path, and we put it in the trash can with flowers, and we had a little ceremony for it.
Well, I am going to need to go quite soon. I have the first installment at this end. We're moving Rita's bed and furniture into her new place here, getting ready for her arrival. So anything anyone wants to say before we go?
Robert, what are the days that you're going to be gone again?
We fly out Wednesday morning, and I'm gone till the following Wednesday. I'm back in the saddle here on Wednesday this following.
Thank you.
Yeah. The other teachers will be filling in and sharing the Dharma with you.
Robert, I have one question.
Yes, my dear.
And that is because I'm having to plan ahead because I don't live in Portland and want to come to the reopening when it happens. If the door thing is an issue and it's not on the 15th, do you have another guess as to when it would be?
The opening will definitely not be on the 15th, under the best of circumstances. That is substantial completion date. We will not be, we don't know how soon after that we will be offered. There's a certificate to open again, an occupancy certificate, and that most probably will not be until the new year. Okay. Almost for sure we won't do an opening before the new year.
That helps me a lot. Thank you.
Great. I have had any impatience about this beaten out of me, because it's like I think, oh, good, great, we're going to get the permit, and then they put it off, and they put it. So here we are. It's been a long time.
Robert.
Tamara.
I just wanted to say thank you for bringing up the state of the world today. How important that is to talk about and not bury our heads about. So I'm really grateful to you for talking about that. So
I am planning early in 2022 to do a day-long workshop, and on Zoom, maybe a hybrid, based upon Joanna Macy's Despair and Empowerment workshops, where we will gather together and really let ourselves feel and speak of the horrors that are happening.
They're horrifying.
Yes, and the powerlessness and the rage and all that stuff. We'll make some room for that and go into it and through it, and then take a stand, find our feet, and reaffirm our spiritual commitment, and perhaps for those who are interested in activism, to strengthen the activist in us as well. There's a new movie that hasn't even been released yet, but that I one of my friends who's in Canada sent me a link to and they're likely going to let me show it at this gathering that we're going to have. It's very powerful. It's about the emotional impact of the catastrophe that is upon us.
It's real.
Yeah, actually, at the movies last night, we went to the theater itself. There were 12 people there. But there's all these movies coming out about some apocalyptic. The moon comes to the earth, and these kind of wild, crazy apocalyptic images. Well, the fact is,
what good does that do?
Well, it's pointing to something. The planet is warming cataclysmically. We are in one of those movies that's not nearly as silly as those movies. We are in a circumstance where civilization is going to be challenged mightily. Yeah. And so we better get our act together and band together and face our grief, and then do what we can.
And about 5 different movie subjects all piled on top of each other that we're going through right now.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
5 different catastrophes all mashed together.
Yeah.
As one.
And as the Buddha was wont to point out, we're all going to die anyway. So we're facing some powerful motivation to practice. Right?
It's good to be here with these good people.
It is.
Their excellent thoughts about how to deal with things. So thank you, everybody.
Well.
Robert, it's Eileen. I just wanted to add something on this subject where it hit home to me so much. Like you, well, I'm leaving in the middle of the night for Philadelphia for 2 weeks, and there's no direct flight. And one of the things that I realized, having flown for 50 years, 40 years, whatever, is I'm going to have to practice the precepts, just being at the airport, being on the plane, and saying, God, I hope nobody punches a flight attendant. And these are things 2 years ago, 3 years, these were not in the consciousness. And I'm going to practice. My face is very expressive. I roll my eyes. None of that. Keep my mouth shut. Keep my mask on. Mm-hmm. And, with all the attendant stuff about going to the airport, like we used to think it was a big thing to have to take our shoes off, right? Go through but it will be 2 days of practicing.
Perfect opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you.
So let us chant our way out of here. May all beings receive all blessings. Please unmute if you want to be participant in the cacophony. Dave Mayer, we expect you to keep us in key.
I just follow your lips.
Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Well, that was a lovely time together. Thank you for coming and participating. May we all have a wonderful, mindful rest of our day.
Bam! Fuck him up.
Thank you, Robert.
Bye-bye.
Have a beautiful day.
Thanks,
you, Robert.
Sam. Thanks, Robert.
Namaste, all.
Namaste. Namaste.
Goodbye, Bruce.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you, Robert. I'll see you next Sunday.
I won't be on next Sunday. I forgot to tell people I'm going to be gone, but there will be someone.
I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah. Thank you for that beautiful sharing. Very sweet, from the heart, nourishing statement.
Thank you, Robert. Bye.
All right, folks. Here we go. Finding YouTube.